We'll get going here, and we'll admit people as they come along. So,
Okay.
welcome to our second to last of season one's Friday Art Lunch Bunch. I'm Frank Korb, and this week we have my good friend and my mentor, Pamela Anderson, joining us. Welcome, Pamela. It's so nice to have you here.
Hello. Thanks for inviting me. I'm really looking forward to talking about my work today and about art. Always a good thing to do.
I mean, what would be better to talk about on this Friday than talking about art? There's so much happening out in the world that's not so pleasant that talking about what we can be pleasant with is worthwhile. I had a chance to see Pamela speak at University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee's gallery about her life and how she got to where she was. And it's been a great year for me personally because I've had a really good chance to work with you, Pamela, and I really appreciate that. So without further ado, we will get into the slideshow and go from there.
Great.
All right, I've lost my picture of me, so hold on a second. As with everything, this is all, it's not new, but it's,
I hope we can talk about our collaboration pieces today too.
I've got mine behind me, and I don't know why my brain, because I'm doing it wrong. Screen share, that's why. Oh my gosh, this is going in the blooper reel. Mother, there we go. Oh, Lord. Pamela Anderson, a painting retrospective, abstracted work by Pamela Anderson. Known for bold, colorful strokes and gestural movement, Milwaukee, Wisconsin artist Pamela Anderson brings a modern dimension to her abstract works. She applies paint in vibrant colors, allowing creations to emerge spontaneously. Her paintings and sculptures are often untitled, which allows her work to be experienced with open interpretation by the viewer. She is a full-time artist, an affiliate and managing director of Material Studios and Gallery. In 2016, she was honored to be awarded the title of Pfister Artist in Residence at the Pfister Hotel in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Her works are held in private and corporate collections, including Mandel Group, Pfister Hotel, Marcus Corporation's St. Kate's Arts Hotel, Northwestern Mutual, Michael Best and Frederick Law, Reinhardt Law, Academy of Asheville. She's a strong advocate for the arts, active in local organizations, including Milwaukee Artist Resource Network, MARN, where she held the executive position of president in 2012 through 2018, and board chair from May 2019 to present. Select exhibitions include Indiana Green, Cedarburg Cultural Center, Spark, Frank Juarez Gallery, Body of Work, Brooks Stevens Gallery, Contemporary Abstraction, a Perspective, Gallery of Wisconsin Art, the Wisconsin Artists Biennale, the Museum of Wisconsin Art, and Saturation at River Edge Gallery. My artwork is the most intimate conversation I have with the world. I work to create visual poems that allow connections in an intellectual experience that is common to us all. Using brushes and a variety of taping knives, scraping tools, and materials, I make both the merest whisper and confident marks on surfaces. My process is fluid, guided by instinct, which is presented by the honesty of the materials within the layers of paint. Line, shape, color, and form inspire and intrigue me. These are details that first drew me to art and have brought me full circle today to my deepest foundations of making. The opportunity to play and create with my inner youthful fervor influenced my life history. The paintings I create both on my 2D and 3D work are connected, creating dialogues with each other. The boldness in color, scale, and forms of my artwork aid in a self-expression that empowers me. I am striving to invent a signature that expands on the foundation of abstraction. It is a space where I explore voice, I am soft-spoken, Midwestern woman on the outside, but when I am painting, I realize I am anything but quiet. I have been in your presence when you're painting, Pamela, and I agree, anything but quiet.
That's a good thing, then.
Absolutely.
Sometimes I need to let my inner Norwegian out.
So the floor is yours. Angie or anybody else who joins us, if you've got any questions, just unmute yourself and ask away. So, and Pamela, just let me know when you want me to move ahead on the slideshow.
Okay, I will.
Thank you.
So, back in 2007, I owned an art gallery and had owned it for around 7 or so years, and I'd been representing artists around the country, a variety of different type of artists, a lot of glass, anything from glass, pottery, paintings, prints, jewelry, a variety of things. And it was a lovely space, a wonderful endeavor, really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed making the acquaintance and getting to know so many of the artists that were in my space. But I was finding that the more I was doing that and the more people were asking me, you paint, why isn't your work in the gallery? And I'd always make excuses like, oh, I don't have time, and oh, I haven't painted in a really long time. And I also didn't feel like the work that I was doing, that I'd done prior to that, or had done for a number of years, really suited the gallery space that I had now. Because I had done a very traditional style of painting. It was beautiful, and I worked with designers and created a lot of custom tile work for kitchens and baths, which have been placed around the world, literally, Europe and the US and South America. And that had become something that I'd sort of, I won't say grown weary of, but I just didn't feel challenged by that anymore. And there were a lot of changes going on in my life, and I felt compelled and interested in trying a different type of painting. And when I would travel, when I was in the business world, I would try to take in shows that modern contemporary museums, and I was always intrigued, very intrigued with, and always very moved by mark making. When I would visit exhibits, I would find that I was drawn always specifically towards things that had, especially sculpturally and pottery pieces and things like that. I was always drawn to shape and form and line. And I started thinking that I would try to begin painting again. And I decided I'd like to try abstract work. And I thought, surely I can paint beautiful birds and flowers and landscapes. I didn't do a lot of landscape work, but I did some. And all of these beautiful things that, like, abstract has to be really, really easy. That was my first mistake. So I set about getting, all the materials, and I hadn't painted on large canvases, and oh my gosh, I don't even want to tell you how long that had been. So I, started getting busy trying to see if I could, make an attempt at that, and immediately found out that painting abstracts were not easy, and that they were definitely challenging. And the more I got into it, the more I was finding that there was a great deal that I had to learn. So I started studying. I have had some studying. I've studied, done some studying with Terence Kaufman over the years, and a few other abstract painters locally in the area. I've taken some classes at MyAd, and I've taken some classes and weekend sessions, you know, with a variety of different artists to both socialize, have fun with, but, you know, definitely in the pursuit of learning how to paint. And what I found is the more I was doing it, the more I wanted to be doing that, the more I wanted to be painting. And I found that I wanted to be at the art gallery less and less, and I wanted to be painting.
Yeah.
So I finally decided that I felt like I had the desire and the wherewithal to pursue this, and it had always been a dream of mine ever since I was a young child. Seriously, used to think about pretty much all my life thinking about being an artist, and I thought, boy, I don't want to be really old someday and sitting there wondering if I could have done this, you know. Even if I can't do it, I want to find out that I can't do it. So
Right.
I have to try this, otherwise I'm going to really regret this. So talked to my partner Stephen and told him what I wanted to do, and I said, you know, after 10 years, I think I'm ready to move on from the gallery and start working on my painting, my work representing me. And he was very supportive and, you know, decided to take that plunge. So I started painting in the basement and had a studio downstairs in our basement. And I felt hindered down there. I'm as quiet as I am, and I'm very, very quiet. I am also very social and need to have people around me. So I found myself moving up to the kitchen, which I think distressed Stephen, and took over the kitchen area and set up a really tiny little studio area. I was getting painting all over the cupboards, and he was not real happy with that, but we made it work. But it was really frustrating because every time we had company, I had to move everything, you know, move everything away and then bring everything back out again. And that part wasn't fun, but I was really enjoying having fun painting, having fun studying, and practicing my art.
Wow.
And the more I got into it, the more I was loving it. So several artists inspired me back then. As I was looking through all my works, thinking about what we would talk about today, I thought it would be, I was looking at some of my favorite pieces that I've done over the years and why I was drawn to doing a particular style, or, you know, maybe had been studying a particular artist at that time. And several artists that inspired me over the years, oddly enough, all male, and I think it's mostly because they have the most exposure out there, and I have been trying to study more women abstract artists' works as well. But I will say that I'm particularly drawn to a certain type of mark making and a feel in a painting, and I haven't found a woman abstract painter yet today that appeals to me, and I don't know why that is. I love everyone's works. I love Helen Frankenthaler's work, and several well-known women abstract artists, but I'm particularly drawn to Diebenkorn, Gerhard Richter, some of the more minimalist abstract artists, because I find that in minimalism I am particularly drawn like this piece that we're looking at here right now. It's very simple, but I just love how the marks kind of pop and
Right.
stand out, because that's where your eye goes to, because there isn't a lot of gestural movement or a lot of brushwork in a piece like this. So when I first started painting, I was doing a lot of work like this. This is a piece that I painted in the kitchen one night, rocking out to the Beatles.
Okay.
Really wasn't intending on painting anything. I wasn't going, after, painting a yellow submarine
Right.
specifically at all, which is pretty funny. So I was just painting, listening to the music and everything. And I stepped back, and at some point when I was looking at the work, I saw the yellow submarine in the painting and decided to paint it, which was a little bit more, abstract representational. And named a painting, which is unusual for me because most of my works, as you would know,
Yeah.
I don't typically name my works unless there is truly something in it that is recognizable. So
Yeah.
Yellow Submarine happened, and this is back from 2009. I hadn't closed the gallery yet and opened up my own studio, but I was painting at that time. I really started in 2007, so I'd been in it for a couple of years, and I was doing a lot of simple pieces like this, learning how to use my tools, and studying a variety of different artists to learn their techniques and start defining, looking for what type of painting I wanted to work on.
When you
So,
first started with the abstraction, did you find yourself utilizing all of the tools you're currently using, or did you find yourself sticking to the traditional brushes and, well, that's pretty traditional, brushes.
yeah, originally I thought I had to use just brushes
Right.
because that's the first thing you think of. I think when, as a painter, you think of brushes. And as I was exploring things, and especially because I was looking at mark making, I was exploring what tools I could use, from screwdriver to fork tines to things that I could scrape paint with, what worked for me.
Yeah.
And I started realizing that brushes weren't just the tools that I wanted to use, but in the early days, probably up till 2010 or so, I probably was using more brushes than anything else.
Hmm.
And that has changed a lot. Today, I would say I use my scraping tools far more than I do brushes. Brushes are primarily used maybe in the last part of my, sometimes I apply paint with them too, so there is that. But for actual brush marks and that sort of thing, I might use those in the very end of the painting, but not in the beginning.
Huh. Okay, thanks.
You can go to the next one.
Okay. Oh, still learning this. Okay, there we go.
And this is another one. This was a painting that I did while I was studying with Terrence Kaufman out at his studio in Jefferson. I studied with him for a couple of years. I first met him when I was painting at Open Canvas, and this individual arrived really late. I kept wondering where this person was that was supposed to be behind me, who was Terrence Kaufman, and the space was empty. And he showed up at not too long before the painting was supposed to be over, and then became this wild man, and he was
Oh,
painting this creation. And I had a hard time finishing my piece because I was intrigued by watching how he was painting, what he was doing. And I thought, oh my gosh, I need to meet this person. And I want to take classes with him. I wonder if he teaches. You know, I was really excited to see how he was working and painting, and wanted to get to know him. I wasn't brave enough to talk to him that night. I think it was about another year before I finally did.
Wow.
But a couple years later, so that probably actually was 2007. And yeah, that would have been 2007. So I think I started studying with him in 2009. He was in another show. I finally got brave enough to walk up to him and ask him if he taught and gave classes. And he wasn't at that time, but he said he'd been thinking about it and liked the idea, and he had this amazing space. I don't know if you've ever been to his studio out in
Not yet
Jefferson,
been
but
there.
it is fabulous. I should take you out there. That would be a good field trip for us. We should do that.
I like that. Let's make plans.
Just so you know, if you make that trip, he's no longer in the studio by Weedles. He's working out of his house now.
Okay.
Just so you know.
Did he move out of the space that he built out to be his studio?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Pretty cool guy though.
Well, there's enough space in his house too that yeah, it still would be very interesting to go out there. Good to know. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, of course.
I haven't been out to see him in a couple of years. I knew that he was trying to do something with that building. So while I was studying with him, that was a period where I was really particularly taken with Gerhard Richter and watched a lot of his videos, studied his paintings. And that's when I really started using the scraping tools more and relying on them more for my mark making and my application of paint. And I loved the layering that I would get with the scraping tools too. While I was painting this piece, it was kind of funny because Terrence and I were kind of arguing with each other. He was telling me how I create my underpaintings is very different from what he does. So I was doing my underpaintings, and he kept coming over and kind of studying, like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, this is something I've been working with. This is how my process has started developing. And at one point he said he didn't think I could do what I wanted to with it. And I'm like, well, we'll see. Okay. And so I kept working on the painting. This is a smaller piece. It's only 24 by 24, but I love the colors on it. I still love this piece so much. And he came back after a little while, and he stood there staring at it, and he goes, wow, that really works. He goes, you're right.
Wonderful.
Like,
yay.
I felt like a little sense of accomplishment at that point, early on in my abstract years.
I love this piece too. It's like you said, the colors are gorgeous. I love that red and the orange against that bright, vibrant blue. It's beautiful.
You'll see in my work as we go through the numbers or the pieces that I picked for today to look at. You'll see a lot of these colors pop up here and there. I come back to this palette a lot. It's one of my favorites. Thank you. Okay, next. So one day when I was painting, now I use a large, here even working at the home studio here while I'm doing my, I'm still quarantining. I don't feel comfortable going out amongst the public yet. I don't feel real safe. I have a large glass piece that I use as my palette. So I don't use a paper palette anymore or any other type of palette. But back in those early days when I was doing smaller pieces, I did use a large palette of that paper where you can tear them up and throw them away.
Yep.
And one day while I was painting a piece, I looked down at my palette paper and I thought, that could be a really interesting painting. And so when I was done painting my painting, I went back to the palette and I looked at it again and I worked it and created this and loved it. And I did a couple of these and I've been thinking I want to get back into that again. Maybe working more with a monoprint or something like that. And you've been doing some of that too. So
yeah, this whole quarantine thing, the quarantine has, and as much as I miss my students, it's certainly given me the opportunity to rethink how to make art so that as a teacher, I can have my students using the supplies at home be successful with, not having everything that our classroom supplies. So doing mono prints with a piece of glass out of a picture frame and acrylic paints or watercolors, and things as simple as printer paper, getting the kids to try that kind of stuff. It's great to see the results, even though they're not entirely happy with it. They're really wonderful little pieces that some of these kids are making.
And for me, for doing that type of work, I just love the lovely surprises that you get from doing that, opposed to purposely mark making. And to me, that's part of the excitement of creating. I have learned over the years, back when I was painting here still, and probably up until 2015, just before I went to the Pfister, is when I finally broke through and realized something really important. And especially, I think, for abstract work. I mean, everyone has a different style, everyone has different techniques, but to be honest, I'm very much a control freak.
What?
I will, yes, I am. So, and I found that I was doing that in my painting.
Yeah.
And so, in an effort to be honest with myself, like, how can I improve? Because I just always I felt like my paintings sometimes are too tight. There was just something missing. There was that, and a lot of times I think the element that was just missing was just the unexpectedness that an abstract painting will bring to you.
Yeah.
And when I was trying to control that, sometimes it looked forced. It just, I think we all, as painters, create a work, and then as soon as we're done with that work, want to move on to the next one because we want to make the next one even better. But I just really never had a sense of satisfaction, and I was always really frustrated. And part of that obviously was just the learning process, but I was just trying to, figure all those things out. And I think that when I finally let go of that and stopped trying to control my work so much, and just let things happen, was when I really started relaxing and really found happiness with my work and painting, and I don't stress over it anymore. Sometimes things don't work out. I hear artists say sometimes that, oh, this one isn't very good, or this one, maybe isn't just finished. You and I have talked about that, where it just becomes an underpainting again.
Yep. Yeah.
And you just keep going with it, right?
For sure.
So I have become a lot more relaxed with my work and having fun with it. And this is a piece where I sort of started playing with that idea where I wasn't trying to control a painting and make something happen. I was just letting things playfully evolve.
That's wonderful.
So I love this piece. Yeah.
That whole sense of things not working out or not being very good. I've got the current piece that I'm working on, our collaborative piece. I got to the point where I was really struggling with just a handful of colors and just put it away for a day or two and came back to it. Just giving myself that little bit of time. Sometimes it just needed that break from it, but I kept making things in between. So yeah, sometimes things aren't going smoothly. You just got to step back.
I think that's important. You and I have talked about that too, where we're just so into it, we're on top of it, and we're looking at it for long enough that we start losing perspective and really being able to see it and stepping away from it and coming back with fresh eyes always, to me, is enlightening. Or all the other tools that we use where we take pictures of it because we see it differently through our camera, and looking at it, turning it, all those fun things that we get to do. Those are playful, fun things, and we should be having fun with that, right?
I agree wholeheartedly.
So I have to do more of these.
More of the palette paintings.
Yes.
One of the things that I do is next to my palette, I keep a little piece of it's like blotter paper, and before I rinse my brushes off in my water or wipe them with a rag, I'll try to get as much paint off of it as possible, and then I'll clean my brushes. And at the end of a painting or a series of paintings, I've got this large piece of paper with all these wonderful marks on it. Now I'll cut it into quarters and I'll make cards out of it. So sometimes I mail those little tiny paintings off as greeting cards. And they're really neat because there's not a lot of planning behind it. It's just a matter of cleaning brushes off and seeing what happens visually.
Exactly. I love that. I've been mentoring an artist up in Escanaba, Michigan for the last several months, and she and I were doing a Zoom call where we were a studio visit and talking about all the pieces that she was working on. And every time she moved around the room, I kept seeing this piece hanging on the wall. And I said, "What is that?" I said, "What's behind you?" And she looked at it because she does cold wax and caustic work. And she goes, "Oh, that." She goes, "That's just some of the papers that I use for blotting my work." And I said, "That is beautiful. You should frame that." And it's monoprints basically.
Yeah.
So she had started framing those pieces, and so that's something I want to start working with again myself.
Wonderful.
So this piece is still studying Richter's work and scraping, and someday I'm going to have Stephen make me some of the huge tools that he works with, like when you see the videos.
They're like 6-foot blades.
Yes.
Yeah, those are great.
Yeah. So I haven't gotten that yet, but I do work with some pretty big ones, and my work had started getting a little bit larger. I was getting braver because, when we first start painting, that big white canvas can be so intimidating, and how do I fill that up? This piece was not a large piece, but back then a 36 by 36 was big for me. So this is a 36 by 36 inch piece, and still love this piece. Timothy Westbrook has this painting. It's in New York, and sometimes I miss it. I have to go visit him so I can visit my painting.
Well, you'll have to wait a little bit of time.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Next time I talk to him, I'll ask him to send you a new photograph.
Oh, that'd be good.
Sure.
Okay. So this is a work again where I'm just doing a lot of scraping and mark making. I had started experimenting with some pastels and some oil sticks, and you can see some of that work in here too, and started scribbling a little bit more in some of my pieces. These remind me of, again, of being a child. When I was at the Pfister Hotel, I think one of the best gifts that I got out of that was to learn why abstracts meant so much to me. I think often when we're in our studios and we're in our practices, we're thinking all the time, right? And we're thinking about so many different things. But one day, an individual stopped in to talk to me, as they do when you're in the studio at the Pfister. And we were chatting about my work, and he sort of stopped me, and he said, "But I have to ask a question." And I said, "Sure." And he said, "Why abstract? Like, why did you choose abstract?"
Sure.
And that's a pretty simple question, and yet not, right? So
Right.
I kind of, I don't know how to answer that. And I thought about it for a few minutes, and I said, well, I said, I guess it's because once I started doing it, when I was first intrigued with the whole idea of trying it and everything, that once I started doing it and getting away from the traditional style of painting, I found that I was rediscovering the first things that drew me to loving art, and that was color, shape, form, line. And I could do those things with abstract work. And once I started doing that and enjoying it as much as I did when I was a kid,
Yeah.
I realized it was playful, it was fun for me, exciting, and I never wanted to go back. My mom still tells me, "I wish you would paint like you used to," and Daddy really wishes you would have painted like the pretty flowers and stuff again. And I can still do that, but I don't want to. So
I think our parents must talk to one another, because I get that from my mom a little bit also.
you do too?
Yeah,
Okay.
a little bit.
They never really understood. My dad used to come to my studio when he was alive, and he would just look at the work, and I think he was trying to understand it, but
Yeah.
he always looked puzzled, as like, why are you doing this? Like, what are you doing? Never really got it. And I think my mother pretends, I think she likes the colors and things, and I think she's
Yeah.
proud of what I'm doing, but I don't think she quite gets it either.
That's okay. Not everybody has to get it.
No. Next one. Okay, so there's a shift here.
Yeah.
So in my other pieces up till now, largely more of my shapes were just from the scraping and the rubbing and all of that. Here I had started looking at Picasso's work more, and I felt like I was drawn to, definite shapes and forms, and I wanted to try a different style of painting. So I was experimenting. I was using tape here. Some of it is more free form, but a lot of this is done with tape. This is a larger piece of 48 inch by 48 inch size. I was experimenting with spray paint.
I see that.
And that's something I haven't tried for a while. It's hard to use in the studio. I have
Especially
to take,
now.
yeah. Well, yeah. At different times of the year, it's a little easier to do. I could do it here at home. I can go out in the back patio. I should get back to that a little bit too. When I see pieces like this, it makes me think of that. So I was having fun with that and was really enjoying it. And this is a series that I started with this piece. This is the first one, Saturation 1. And pretty happy with it, but not like this being the first one, I definitely wanted to work more with this. So this next one, I think, is the Saturation 2. Here, and I think you'll see in my paintings, I use blue a lot, more than I thought. When I was putting this grouping together last night, I was shocked at how much blue I have used, especially in the pieces that I picked out that were my favorites. So maybe when people commission work from me and things like that, they might not be a blue person. So over the years, I've done a lot of other colors, obviously, but I seem to pick out a lot of the paintings I was picking out last night were my blue ones. I just get lost in this one. I can see a little bit of Picasso in there, and again, just enjoyed playing with this and creating the shapes and everything. This one is like,
I really love the subtleties where you go from the deep, deep blues to the not quite as deep blues, and you've got some beautiful lighter ones, just really nice push and pull of that abstract space.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I've done 2 in this palette, and I want to do more of these. I'm not done with this series yet. I want to get back and do a few more pieces with this and get back to playing with some of the techniques that I've used in this. This takes a little bit more time. These both were done in oil paint, which I don't use very often. You know, I usually do mostly acrylic. And I've done some where I've done a combination of starting with acrylic and then oil. But these were oil pieces. And what I liked about these 2, because another important part for me is not just doing the work, but relaxing, enjoying, both physically and emotionally working with it. These slow me down, because when I'm doing my more gestural work and getting all wild and crazy, that's a different type of work for me. So I liked working on these because I had to take these more slowly because I had to wait for the paint to dry. I had to be more patient, and I'm not a very patient person. So these were a good exercise in discipline for me as well, I think, which was kind of interesting.
That's a neat point you make, though, that it's a good exercise in discipline. I think, to the students that I have the opportunity to work with, and that idea of discipline isn't something that they necessarily put into the process of learning how to make art. It's so much about, you know, learning the techniques, and with this closure of schools and the pandemic and everything, getting my kids to work on a regular basis has been, well, I mean, it's worse than pulling teeth. They haven't developed that part of the process and wanting to learn through that. So I like how you've attached the discipline to it, you know, forcing yourself to slow down. That's a great lesson to carry forward.
And I think anytime we do slow down, I think we learn new things. I think we're listening to ourselves more, and I think that's important to try to remember to do that occasionally, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I love this piece. Oh, this piece I love too. I love the color. I love the yellow in this. This piece was in the Biennale at the Wisconsin Museum of Art. And my first museum show, I was so excited. So excited. And this was actually a diptych. There's another piece that goes with it. I don't think I put that in here. But super simple here, and I decided to start limiting my palette a little bit more, and I was using primarily, I think with the exception of that blue mark there, I think everything was done with my scraping tools. So I was kind of going back more towards the minimalist look again here. And again, slowing down a little bit, but, and these are acrylic again. And these are done on paper. These were some of the first works I had done on paper. Most of my work up until then had been done on canvas. So I started using paper more, and I have learned that one of the things I really, really enjoy doing when I need to mix it up a little bit and just change my pattern, because I think that's another really good thing to do, is to just go back and forth between paper and canvas, because the paper, I love how the paper accepts the paint so differently. Don't you too?
Yeah, just, you know, I've had a chance to work on, I mean, I've got some very large scale pieces on paper. And then the piece that we're working on together, working on that infrastructure with it still has a little bit of a push to it, but it doesn't push deep like a canvas with no support behind it does. So yeah, to play around with those different ones is great. And I've been really amazed at how sturdy paper is. I always think of it being like so fragile in comparison to a canvas, but I mean, boy, one can really go to town on that.
Yeah. Yeah, you really can, and create some really interesting effects.
Yes.
So that's what I learned starting to do these pieces. You know, how wet I get the paper, or how dry, or just the different tools again. Very, very different experience. Even layering was different, like, than canvas could be sometimes. So, or painting and then wetting it back down, and, you know, just all those different techniques, would just really have a lot of fun with that.
Okay.
So the next, this was my first painting. I started studying Diebenkorn, and especially his Ocean Park series, particularly drawn to those. And this was my first painting that I did after studying him. And I just love the palette in this. I love the lusciousness of the paint here, and the mark making.
One of the things I really like about this painting is the underpainting peeking through, like the green on the bottom and the little bit of red peeking through the black and the tan in the lower right hand corner. And then just even that green coming through it's not a triangle, but in the lower right hand corner, that yellow ochre sort of shape. I just love the layering that you have in these pieces.
Yeah, those are some of my favorite parts too. In the top there, where there's just that, that I love the shapes in this, and the you know, just that light paint wash over the top there. And another thing I really like to do, I don't know if you've ever really noticed, but I always like to pay particular attention to my edges. Yes. And I like to make my edges interesting.
I agree. Those are things that I am very focused on myself, and that tension between a line as it comes towards an edge, and does it fall off the edge, or does it ride the edge, or does it, you know, want to be off? You know, I think looking at kids' work, high schoolers and even grade school, you know, everything, not everything, but a lot of times the edges and the corners get ignored because we want things in the middle. And
Mhm.
those are things that I really focus my students to think about, is how are you dealing with the edges and the corners, as I am always aware of that. And I just love, like on the right-hand side, you've got that blue square that is, you know, half an inch away from the edge, and that edge has so many things coming through it, the light blue and the white and this dark green and the texture. It's just wonderful work in
Yeah, I have a lot of fun with that, and just wrapping it around. If it's a gallery, I just wrap it around the corner sometimes, and um, finishing the sides sometimes just completes the front of the painting for me. So that's
there.
another part of the canvas process that I really enjoy. This piece, love this piece. This is living in Boulder, Colorado, and I got to visit it 2 years ago when I went out on a trip. I can't wait to get out there again when we get to travel again, right? This piece, still Diebenkorn inspired, but I started playing with the idea of doing a new series. When I fly, when I travel, I'm always particularly taken. One of my favorite parts of flying is watching the earth below us, and depending on what height we're at, what altitude, whatever, how abstract earth looks.
Yes.
And I see so many, and I get inspired by looking at that, and I see abstract paintings are happening in my head. And so I'm always taking pictures with my iPhone through the window. And I was in my head starting to work on this aerial view series that I wanted to do. This was done about a year before I actually did my first real aerial piece, but this is sort of that feeling, but softer shapes. I love the colors in this. And this, so it was a transition, I think, from Diebenkorn, doing that other style that I was doing, and sort of gravitating towards the Midwest aerial view series that I started, which I think is one of the next ones. So this is one of the first, this is, I think, the first one that I did. This one is more of a urban aerial view, so I don't like to describe what I see in it. I like the viewer to kind of take their own imagination into my works, and I let them tell me what they see, because I always feel that in abstract work, color, shapes, and form will mean completely something completely different to you than they do to me. So I don't go into a lot of explanation about these works, because I want you to have your own experience. I don't want to tell you what to see.
Yep.
This one is, I see some water and some piers, and this more of like a city urban aerial view for me. And again, it's all about shape, form, and color line here for me. So I think I sometimes wonder if I get that from my upbringing, from my Scandinavian heritage, because I have a lot of those pieces around me. And I don't know if that's why I'm drawn to that. But again, that's just something that really informs, how I want to create my work. So I think about that a lot.
I think one of the things, and you haven't really mentioned it, you talk a lot about color and shape and form and line, but I think one of the things that your work really resonates to me with is the sense of space. It has so many layers. Some of the shapes are very, very close to me, but then you've got other spaces that just, they go back miles. And so it's this great depth. And I don't know if that's something that you see and you just don't talk about, or if it's just something that maybe you're not seeing. But I really resonate with the amount of space that you generate in these pieces.
I think it's something that I do that is just part of, like, a lot of it just seems so to come naturally for me that I don't give it a lot of thought, but I see what you're saying, and yes, I think so. And I think that my ability to achieve that effect has changed over the years as I practice. Like this one, definitely, like the red behind the yellow, and
Yes.
the red behind the green, and yeah. So these paintings were probably the first time where I was feeling like I was sort of discovering my, like, I'm influenced by all these other artists, but this series, that and the Saturation series, I felt like were the first series that I'd done where I was really defining me.
Okay.
What I was really happy with. And I'm also really excited to say that this piece and another one, I think I have that in here too, in the mix, that one. These two actually together. I didn't put them purposely together last night, but here they are. Just won Best of Show in a
Congratulations.
online international show.
Wow.
So
That's wonderful.
yeah. So this one very playful. Really had fun doing this. This is part of the Mandel collection for a corporate project that I worked on for them, and I had so much fun with this piece. Very, very fun, very playful. Love the colors. There's my blue again.
Yeah.
So
There it is again.
there it is again. That blue definitely shows up a lot in my work. This is a little bit different technique, still have some of my shapes, gone back to the softer shapes again now, but this is a new style that I've started painting in just this last year. I've been following Nicholas Wilton on Instagram and absolutely love his work and studying how he paints. And this is the series that has evolved from that experience. And just, again, doing the layers and everything with this, and the scribbling. Largely kind of how I had been painting, but just a little bit different feel. And just really having fun with this.
A little more brushwork, it feels.
A little bit back more, yeah. Not all of the things that I do in that, yes, especially on this one. And it's kind of mixing it up again.
Yeah, that's great.
Have to have fun.
Oh, that's a new transition. You threw that in on me.
Yeah. So back to Midwest aerial view. I actually had done this a while ago, but I went back in and made some very subtle, but some small changes to it, enough that I felt like I had to say that it had changed. So this piece and another piece that you saw me working on a couple weeks ago, that smaller one.
Yes.
Same color palette and all of that. And so this again is one of my Midwest aerial view series, and these were largely inspired by flying over the farm fields in the fall, and I have a couple. I want to keep going with this series, and I have it in my mind ultimately to do different seasons. So I want to do some winter scapes with this same thing, but very like whites and grays and things like that. And it's again, sometimes it takes me. Sometimes I think about something for a couple years before I actually do it, which is what happened with this series. It was just sort of fomenting in the brain, and then I finally pulled the plug and did it. So one of these days you'll probably see a winter series.
Good. When you can get out and get aerial shots from the sky in the wintertime.
I have tons of photographs.
Oh, good.
Tons of, and I've got some amazing ones when I flew into Denver last December. So
Fantastic.
I might have to travel that way. So yes, I agree, Angela.
I said bring that up.
So it was fun to look at all of these last night.
Oh wow, there's
And
one or
see-
two more.
There's this one again was inspired by studying
Sorry.
and goes that blue one that we saw a few minutes ago, done in the same similar style. This is a really big one. This is 72 inches by 72 inches. Thank you, Angela. So it's not so nice to meet you. I've seen you on some of the other slideshows.
She's
Hopefully we'll talk again.
Yes, it was wonderful. Thank you so much. You've
Thank
amazing.
you.
I hope to meet you in real life someday too.
Tonight was supposed to be our exhibition. Would have met her tonight, Angie.
I would have, because you know I would have been there. I wouldn't have missed that for the world.
Oh, I know.
It's gonna happen. You should come to the studio. Come to the studio sometime with Frank.
Oh, I would love to do that. Thank you. Yes, as soon as we can.
Love that too.
Yeah, as soon as we can get together. We'll see you later, Angie.
All right, bye guys.
Bye-bye. So this is another where you can see more brushwork again. And I started this. This actually was a completed painting that I'd done for another show, and I brought it back to the studio. And I just wasn't happy with it. And it became the underpainting, and this happened, and I love this piece. And I love paint. Paint has been creeping into my paintings lately, which is really weird for me. I'm not a very frou-frou person, and these pastel yellows and pinks are new for me, so that's a new addition to my work.
That's great. I find myself forcing myself to use brighter and brighter, at least I in my head I'm forcing myself to do that because I feel like all of my colors tend to weigh the same. So I'm trying to bring that contrast between the two. That's one of the things I love about this piece is such a difference between the blues and the reds and the green, and then these colors that are right on top of it.
Yeah. Very fun. Next, is this the last one?
We got one more, which is your sculptural pieces.
Okay. So this is my newest series, Color Block, which, again, as Angela said, kind of coming back full circle to a lot of the things that are important to me in my work, and having a lot of fun with this series. Sort of a more modern approach. I can still see a little bit of Diebenkorn in there, for instance, and inspiration there, but I feel like these are mine, you know. These say Pamela.
They do. These feel very taped, very, very hard edged.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
And
using real delicate thin lines against these really big, thick, bold shapes. And those edges, again, those edges.
Sometimes I think I learn a lot just when listening to people talk about my work.
Oh,
I love that, like you and other artists friends, but even just individuals coming in to look at my work. I think they tell a story that I feel, understand, and hear somewhere in my head, but when they say it, like when you verbalize it, like my talking to that guy that day in the Pfister, realizing that I couldn't paint those bright, bold colors in the traditional style paintings that I was doing. And I was missing that happiness. This is where I find my happiness.
yeah.
So, and then the sculpture now has become an extension of my paintings. These are paintings too. They're not just they're sculptural, but they're paintings
Yeah.
on wood. And I love the dialogue that's taking place between the sculptural works and my paintings. So I feel like it's an extension of my painted work.
No, these are great.
And again, the shape and the form. So I'm really starting to have fun with being able to create a hard surface, form, shape, and painting more shapes. So really kind of having fun. These are really playful pieces because depending on how you lay them down, move them around, rearrange the shapes together, creates a whole different look.
Yeah.
So, really, really having fun playing with these.
These are wonderful. It was neat to see these firsthand when you had kind of unveiled them. So this is really exciting.
Now, when I was doing the photography for this, and I had set up and I'm doing the shooting it and everything, when I looked through the camera at the two pieces, the tall piece and the circle in front that's laying flat, I just saw this cool arrow.
I saw that too.
And that wasn't intentional at all.
Yeah.
Those are just some of the fun things that happen with these pieces, and I had to take a picture of it that way.
Yeah, these are great. These are great.
So these are an extension of my color block series.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you for joining us today. This has been fabulous.
Very
Next week, Katie Stensberg is going to join us, another one of our Marn friends. And this has been fabulous, Pamela. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it.
Katie, people are really going to enjoy watching Katie. I'm just so excited to see where she's come with her abstracts. She's amazing.
Yeah. So, well, until next week, thanks for joining us.
Move aside for just a second. I want to see that.
Which way do I go? This way. There we go.
Yeah. Well, all of them are wonderful, but it's so fun to see. I love the colors in it.
Thank you.
Absolutely gorgeous. Beautiful.
And I've got everything planned out. I've got little stickers where the next sets of colors are going to be, and
You and I work so differently.
And that's what's been so fun to work with yours, is that, you know, I know that a lot of things go into it, but it's very intuitive for you. And even the line that I started with, I had sketched out in my sketchbook to start with, kind of as a plan.
Yeah.
I think the two bigger pieces behind this one, if I can step to the proper side, I think those two pieces are going to be much more intuitive.
I really like what's happening with those. Your work, I love where your work has gone this year. It's so exciting.
Yeah, and it's been fun.
Very wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
So, cross our fingers.
Yes. Awesome. Bye.
Bye. We'll talk soon. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.